Hello friends and welcome to our next class on SAP BW, and in this class we'll be looking at how the SAP BW DataFlow designing is done. This is our SAP BW DataFlow, and the first main objective is to identify the type of data, and the next would identify the number of info object that is required and what are its types. And once that is done, we'll select the info provider accordingly and loading the data in it through info package and DTP. So first we will learn what are the different types of data. Primarily, there are two types of data: master data and transaction data. Master data is further subdivided into three types: attribute, text, and hierarchy, whereas transaction data is divided into actual type of data and plan type of data. So let's take an example of each of them to get a better understanding. So this table is an attribute type of a master data, wherein the customer number C001 is the characteristic type info object. So here customer C001 holds the attribute like name, country, and contact number. Even though both of these are the characteristic type attribute, but they are connected in such a fashion that whenever we're gonna be calling customer number C001, it would also bring us the respective data attached to it. Like for C002, it would bring up Dave, Canada, 12, and its contact number. Now in text type of data, the same customer number is attached to its respective language. As SAP is used by multiple countries which speaks multiple language, so it is supported by multiple languages. So for our customer C1 who has its login language as EN, so it would provide the description in English. So over here it is customer 1, whereas our customer 2 is logging in and he is a German, so the code for German is DE and its description would be in German. This is Kunner 2. So it would respectively translate the objects as per the language. Hierarchy, over here the data is stored in a proper sequence. So basically it is used when you want to represent master data in levels up and down, and it makes data more redundant, and it has one problem: extraction from R3 to BI side of hierarchy type of data is not possible. So these are the three types of master data and actual type of transaction data. So it holds the data which has occurred in our real time, whereas a plan type of data is used for planning purpose. Let's take an example. So we have supposed that we want our revenue to be $10 million by 2015. So this revenue is indeed a transaction type of data, but over here it is a plan because it has not occurred at this point in time, whereas the actual data is the data which keeps the record of day-to-day business. So the planned data is made on actual data. So after accumulating the data of couple of years, we would use that data for planning purpose. So actual data is where a BW consultant works, and a plan data is used by APO consultant, that is advanced planning optimizer, or IP, that is integrated planning. So now we will have a look at types of info object. In all, there are 5 types of info object. The first one is characteristic. So it defines on what basis we will be analyzing our key figures. To explain it, we can take an example of employee, material, or color. So these are the things on which we will be analyzing the key figures. And what are key figures? It is purely a measurable quantity which are used to analyze our report. So best example of characteristic is, let's say a customer number C001 has a salary of 1 lakh. So 1 lakh is what we will be going to analyze, is our key figure over here, and customer number or customer ID is our characteristic type info object. Also, key figure doesn't purely means that a telephone number is also a key figure. No, telephone number is a characteristic because we won't be analyzing on it. So stating in one line, characteristic types of info object are those on the basis of which we analyze key figure, and key figure, it is a purely measurable quantity and on which we analyze our reports. A unit characteristic, it will provide unit to our key figures like kg, pound, and time characteristic, it will hold the value of our time transaction has taken place. Now the what we are left with is technical characteristic, that is a request ID, which we'll be learning when we'll be doing our practicals. So I have taken an example, and over here we'll be analyzing what is the type of data, how many info objects we'll be creating, and what will be its type. So the first one we can see it's a master data, and it has got 4 info objects, of which name, country, and contact number are attribute type of characteristic info object. And similarly in our transaction data we have got 5 info objects, of which one is characteristic type info object, cost and quantity are key figure type of info object, unit is a unit type of info object, and date is a time characteristic info object. Now we'll see what are the different types of info providers. InfoCube are primarily divided into 2 different types, standard and virtual. Standard are InfoCube which hold the data physically. So the standard are further subdivided into 2 types, that is standard InfoCube and real-time InfoCube. So in standard InfoCube data cannot be loaded manually. So over here planning is not allowed. Whereas in real-time InfoCube, here we can load the data manually, and so planning can be done. So it is mostly used by APO or BPC consultant. Whereas in virtual type of InfoCube, it is further subdivided into 3 types. It is based on DTP from direct access, when we are remotely accessing the data from SAP or other flat file as a source system. Second one is it is based on BAPI, that is BAPI. Its full form is Business Application Programming Interface. So it is used when we remotely access data from a non-SAP source system. And the last one is based on function module. It is user-defined function module as a data source. So these are the bifurcation of InfoCubes. Another info provider we have is DSO. It is further subdivided into 3 types: standard, write optimize, and direct update. Standard DSO is a plain 2-dimensional table. Standard DSO holds 3 different types of 2-dimensional table: active data table, new data table, and changelog table. Whereas write optimized DSO has only one table, that is active data table. Direct update DSO, it is used when we're implementing ADP, that is analysis design process. Multi-providers and InfoSet. Multi-provider and InfoSet, these are info providers but not a data target. It does not hold data physically. It is used when we want a query by combining data from 2 or more info providers. So these info providers can be info object, info cube, DSO, or even info set. So whenever we want to create a multi-provider, at least there should be one common info object available in the info provider which we are combining, and that info object should be a part of a primary key. So it makes the union of all the info provider and displays to us in the front end. Whereas info set, it is similar to our multi-provider, but it makes the intersection of data. So both of these do not store the data, and at the runtime the data is executed from their respective info providers. Types of transformation. There are 6 types of transformation: direct assign, constant, routine, formula, no transformation, and read master data. Direct assign transformation, as it clearly mentions, the data from source field to our target field is directly assigned. There is no changes is done to it. Constant type, it is used when we want to add a record, when we want to fill the records with some constant values. Routine, in this type of transformation we'll be writing an ABAP code that would clearly depends upon the requirement of the client. Formula type of transformation, this transformation will be doing calculation on the source field and the resultant info object is loaded into our info provider. No transformation, data is not carried forward in this situation, in no transformation. And read master data, it is used when we have already loaded a master data in and we want to load transaction data. So with the help of master data, it loads the data into our info provider. Types of DTP. There are 4 types of DTP: standard, direct access, error, and real-time data acquisition. So standard type of DTP is used for loading the InfoCube DSOs, whereas direct access DTP is used to load virtual provider. And error DTP, it is used when while loading the data from PSA to info provider, the error prone records are loaded into our error stack. So these errorness record are manually updated, and then we run an error DTP to load the data from error stack to our data target. And real-time data acquisition, so it is used whenever we want a very frequent data extraction. So the data can be extracted after as minimum as 90 seconds or as maximum as 90 minutes. So this frequent extraction degrades the performance of the source system. So it is mostly used when we are having the source is SAP R3 or web based application. So these are the different types of DTPs. So that's all for today's class. Thank you.